The realest rapper ever. I'm the realest white rapper ever. Not to know that Eminem would come, shortly after. At first, I didn't want to do it.
I had some opportunity.
Other than that, people are gonna pass judgment. They're gonna say what they want to say, and they're gonna make their own conclusions or whatever.
To really come back in the music business with the best. With the best. When they came to me, we sat there together, and I was like, I had
writing lyrics since I was like 14 years old, and just the more I wrote, the better I kept getting at it.
Before they ever crossed paths, Mark Wahlberg and Eminem were already living in two very different worlds. Wahlberg was trying to shake off his Marky Mark image, the shirtless rapper turned Hollywood actor, while quietly hiding a violent past most people never knew. Eminem, on the other hand, wasn't reinventing anything. He was fighting his way out of Detroit, proving himself in a culture that demanded respect and punished weakness. Every bar, every battle was survival. Two men with scars, secrets, and egos too big to ignore. And when MTV finally put them in the same room, it wasn't just a casual run-in. It was the spark that lit a Cold War.
How about a nice round of
Wahlberg.
What's up, Mark?
What's up, bro? It's Billy. What's up,
Eminem, Mark?
How you doing?
All right. What's up, man?
What's going on?
Good to see you.
Where am I supposed to go over here?
Yeah, just chill right there.
We'll just all stand together like a happy, fun bunch.
Yeah.
Happy group. We'll all...
Eminem, you have any aspiration to act? That seems to be like a common thread. A lot of musicians, sort of a next step.
One day. Maybe one day. I'm trying to get where this guy is.
The tension first exploded under the bright lights of MTV Studios in the early 2000s. Both men were rising stars. Eminem had just stormed the rap world with raw, unapologetic lyrics, while Wahlberg was busy carving out a second life in Hollywood, trying to leave Marky Mark buried in the past. On paper, it should have been a smooth crossover. Wahlberg, the former rapper turned actor, and Eminem, the rapper redefining what a white MC could be, standing on the same stage. But the reality, it was a train wreck waiting to happen. The cameras caught it all. Wahlberg stepped forward with that confident Hollywood grin, reaching out like they were long-lost buddies. Eminem didn't budge. No handshake, no nod, not even a polite smirk. Just a deadpan stare that cut Wahlberg down in front of millions. For the crowd, it was shocking. For Wahlberg, it was humiliating. In that moment, all his carefully polished image work, those family-friendly interviews, the reinvention into a serious actor, was shredded in one move. Because Eminem wasn't just brushing him off. He was sending a message. I don't respect you and I don't care who's watching. Backstage, the story only got messier. Insiders whispered that Wahlberg's crew, made up of real Boston street guys, felt disrespected and were ready to throw down. Security had to keep things from spiraling out of control. Not because of Eminem, but because Wahlberg's people weren't about to let their guy get clowned on live TV. The tension was real, and everyone who was there knew it could have gotten physical. From then on, the tone was set. Wahlberg felt played, like Eminem had dragged his past back into the spotlight without even saying a word. And Eminem? He brushed it off, laughing in interviews, even downplaying it with that cold Detroit confidence. But make no mistake, what looked like a brief, awkward moment on MTV was actually the start of a silent war. This wasn't about one handshake. It was about credibility, ego, and two very different men trying to claim space in the same spotlight. And what came next would dig up secrets Wahlberg had spent years trying to bury. To really understand why Eminem brushed Mark Wahlberg off so coldly, you have to rewind the tape. Because beneath Wahlberg's Hollywood glow-up was a history darker than most fans ever realized. Long before the Oscar nominations and blockbuster films, Wahlberg's name in Boston wasn't tied to acting at all. It was tied to violence. At just 15, he was on record, chasing a group of black school kids, throwing rocks while screaming racial slurs. The very next day, he did it again. This time at the beach, targeting another group of children in the same hateful way. By 16, things escalated. Wahlberg attacked a Vietnamese man with a wooden stick so brutally that the man was left permanently blind in one eye. Hours later, he punched another man in the face just because he could. The charges were heavy, attempted murder. But Wahlberg only served 45 days in jail. Hollywood later painted it as a troubled teen who found God and changed his life. But to Eminem, those headlines never disappeared. Because while Wahlberg was getting a second chance, Eminem was still fighting for a first. In Detroit, Marshall Mathers wasn't battling kids on the street. He was battling rappers in smoky clubs where one bad verse could end your career before it started. Being white in hip-hop meant every bar was a test. He had no publicist to spin his story, no Hollywood machine to polish his past. What he had were scars, bruises, and a reputation he built line by line, proving himself in front of crowds that didn't owe him respect. That's the key difference. Wahlberg was trying to bury his past while Eminem was defined by his. Hip-hop respected Eminem because he earned it. He took beatings, faced rejection, and still fought his way into a culture that demanded authenticity. Wahlberg, on the other hand, was trying to cash in on a culture he once disrespected, flashing abs and rapping bubblegum lyrics while hoping everyone forgot the crimes in his rearview. So when Wahlberg tried to dap him up on MTV like they were equals, Eminem wasn't just rejecting a handshake, he was rejecting the idea that Mark had ever belonged in that space. And from Eminem's perspective, that past wasn't just ugly, it was unforgivable. After that MTV clash, the feud never turned into an explosive back and forth on camera. Instead, it simmered beneath the surface, quiet, sharp, and laced with tension. Eminem didn't fire off a direct diss track, but he didn't let it go either. In interviews, freestyles, and even casual conversations, he threw clever lines about rappers who traded bars for movie roles, and guys pretending to be hard in front of cameras. He never said Wahlberg's name, but fans didn't need him to. They picked up on every jab, convinced Slim was aiming at Mark. The strategy worked. Eminem had mastered the art of the subtle shot, enough bite to stir conversation, but never so obvious that Wahlberg could directly respond. It kept the tension alive while letting fans do the decoding. In hip-hop, that's often more powerful than a flat-out diss, because it creates speculation that never dies down. Wahlberg, on the other hand, chose the opposite path. He stayed quiet, brushing off any questions about Eminem with quick, dismissive answers. To the public, it looked like he didn't want to fuel the fire, but insiders whispered he wasn't just brushing it off, he was still bothered. The MTV humiliation had stung, and the idea that Eminem could use his platform to drag up Mark's past made him uneasy. That silence spoke volumes. Wahlberg might have had Hollywood power, but he knew better than to go head-to-head with Eminem, a rapper who built his career destroying opponents. In this Cold War, Slim controlled the narrative, and Wahlberg's only defense was to stay quiet and hope the spotlight shifted away. The problem was, it didn't. Every subtle line from M reignited speculation, and every silence from Wahlberg only made fans believe the shots had hit their target. What started as one MTV incident had turned into an unspoken rivalry, one where Eminem played offense and Wahlberg played defense, without either man ever officially stepping into the ring. By the early 2000s, both men had influence, but in completely different worlds. Eminem's power came from the streets and the music industry. With Dr. Dre in his corner, 50 Cent on his team, and D12 behind him, his circle carried a real weight. These weren't just rappers, they were soldiers, people who lived the life hip-hop was built on. On top of that, Eminem's ties stretched into Los Angeles, where even notorious names thought twice before crossing him. His credibility didn't come from Hollywood cameras, it came from people who actually moved in the streets. For a rapper, that level of protection and respect was priceless. Mark Wahlberg's power looked different. He had money, movie deals, and a reputation as one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. But Hollywood power doesn't always translate outside the red carpet. Wahlberg could control his image on screen, but Eminem controlled the narrative in the culture. And in hip-hop, credibility is everything. That's why the feud carried so much tension. Wahlberg had a past he couldn't erase, and Eminem had a platform big enough to remind the world of it at any time. On one side was Hollywood polish. On the other was raw authenticity. And when those forces clashed, the gap between them only grew wider. For most of his career, Mark Wahlberg worked hard to control his public image. He shifted from the shirtless Marky Mark persona into an Oscar-nominated actor and family man, a guy who could headline comedies and action blockbusters. On the surface, it looked like he had buried his teenage mistakes for good. But Hollywood memories are short. Hip-hop memories aren't. Whenever Wahlberg's name got mentioned in the same sentence as Eminem, his old past came flooding back. Fans on forums and social media began resurfacing those darker chapters. The violent assaults, the racial slurs, the jail sentence that lasted just 45 days. People couldn't ignore how different his treatment had been compared to others without his fame. That's where Eminem's shadow made things even worse. Slim Shady never had to call Mark out directly. He didn't need to. Whenever Eminem spit lines about fake tough guys or celebrities who tried to jump into hip-hop for clout, the connection was too easy to make. Even if Mark's name wasn't dropped, the audience filled in the blank. What stung most for Wahlberg was the timing. Just when he seemed to fully reinvent himself as Hollywood royalty, those headlines came back to life. Interviews, podcasts, and fan debates all circled around the same question. Could you really separate Mark Wahlberg, the actor, from Mark Wahlberg, the street kid who nearly blinded a man? Eminem didn't have to say a word to reignite that fire. His reputation alone, authentic, unapologetic, and rooted in survival, made Wahlberg's polished Hollywood image look like smoke and mirrors. And every time Wahlberg tried to distance himself from the past, it only came roaring back louder, proving that some histories are harder to erase. Today, the Wahlberg-Eminem feud lives in a strange space. It's not loud, it's not messy, but it's definitely not forgotten. Both men sit on top of their industries, but neither has ever extended an olive branch. That silence says more than a diss track ever could. Wahlberg has built a billion-dollar Hollywood career. Blockbusters, restaurants, even fitness brands. Every move he makes is carefully polished to keep him in the spotlight as a respected businessman and family man. And because of that, he avoids any talk that could drag him back to the street kid he used to be. When Eminem's name pops up, Wahlberg's answers are short, guarded, and always polite. Almost too polite. It's the kind of tone you use when you'd rather not be talking about someone at all. Eminem, on the other hand, hasn't changed his stance. He doesn't mention Wahlberg directly, but his bars still sting with the same edge. Lines about actors playing gangsta or guys rewriting their past hit harder because the parallels are obvious. Fans immediately connect the dots, and the internet never misses a chance to revive the feud. Even in silence, Eminem keeps the upper hand because he knows his authenticity is untouchable. Behind the scenes, insiders in both industries say there's still tension. Wahlberg's team reportedly prefers not to cross paths with Eminem's circle, especially in events where both could appear. And while the chances of a direct clash are slim, the underlying feeling hasn't faded. It's just been pushed beneath the surface. So what's the dynamic now? It's mutual avoidance. They don't clash in public, they don't throw direct shots, but they also don't pretend there's peace. Instead, they live in parallel lanes. Hollywood shine on one side, raw hip-hop respect on the other. Two powerful men who once collided and decided distance was the only way forward. In the end, the clash between Eminem and Mark Wahlberg was never about music charts or movie box offices. It was about identity. Eminem built his empire on authenticity, carving out respect in a world that doesn't forgive fakes. Wahlberg built his fortune on reinvention, rewriting his past to fit Hollywood's glossy image. When those two paths crossed, the friction was inevitable. What makes this feud unforgettable is how it never needed diss tracks or headline-grabbing confrontations. One cold MTV moment and a handful of sly lines were enough to create a divide that still lingers decades later. Sometimes silence can be louder than any public war. Today, both men stand as giants in their own fields. Wahlberg dominates Hollywood screens, while Eminem remains a rap legend who proved that raw honesty can outlast fame. But their story reminds us of something deeper. No matter how high you climb, your past and the way people perceive it can always follow you. And maybe that's why this quiet rivalry still fascinates fans. It isn't just about two celebrities clashing. It's about the worlds they represent colliding, Hollywood polish versus hip-hop grit, reinvention versus authenticity. Two different powers forever linked by one unforgettable moment.